to the Global Skill Development Council, your gateway to digital transformation. We are an independent, vendor-neutral ISO IEC 1024 accredited certification body committed to helping individuals and organizations stay future-ready in a rapidly evolving world. GSDC is accredited by the Accreditation Board for International Certification Bodies, ABICB. For 10 years, we've certified more than 100,000 professionals across Europe, North America, Asia, and Africa, with our offices in Switzerland, the United States, and Singapore. Our programs are recognized by leading publications and podcasts, including Forbes, Tech Target, People Managing People. We offer 100-plus globally accredited certifications across emerging and in-demand domains like generative AI and emerging technologies, HR and learning and development, project management and agile Scrum, ISO and quality management, information security. Each GSDC certification is designed to empower professionals with confidence and help organizations stay competitive in a fast-changing landscape. Every certification is crafted with insights from 100-plus global advisory board members representing top universities and leading industry experts. Our certified professionals are trusted by 500-plus multinational companies, which help unlock better roles, faster promotions, and delivering cutting-edge expertise. We partner with 100-plus authorized training partners and 50-plus universities, supporting talent across all career levels, from entry-level to executive leadership. As a GSDC member, you gain lifelong access to interactive webinars, hands-on workshops, SME panels, and global summits. Join a vibrant community of 25,000-plus members and be part of our global events. Check our reviews on Trustpilot. We're trusted worldwide for quality, support, and impact. Whether you're aiming higher or building tomorrow's talent, GSDC is your partner in purposeful growth and impactful leadership. Visit our website to explore our offerings. GSDC, share the best practices and learn from the best practices. Welcome to the Global Skill Development Council, your gateway to digital transformation. We are an independent, vendor-neutral ISO IEC 1024 accredited certification body committed to helping individuals and organizations stay future-ready in a rapidly evolving world. GSDC is accredited by the Accreditation Board for International Certification Bodies, ABICB. For 10 years, we've certified more than 100,000 professionals across Europe, North America, Asia, and Africa, with our offices in Switzerland, the United States, and Singapore. Our programs are recognized by leading publications and podcasts, including Forbes, Tech Target, People Managing People. We offer 100-plus globally accredited certifications across emerging and in-demand domains like generative AI and emerging technologies, HR and learning and development, project management and agile Scrum, ISO and quality management, information security. Each GSDC certification is designed to empower professionals with confidence and help organizations stay competitive in a fast-changing landscape. Every certification is crafted with insights from 100-plus global advisory board members representing top universities and leading industry experts. Our certified professionals are trusted by 500-plus multinational companies, which help unlock better roles, faster promotions, and delivering cutting-edge expertise. We partner with 100-plus authorized training partners and 50-plus universities, supporting talent across all career levels, from entry-level to executive leadership. As a GSDC member, you gain lifelong access to interactive webinars, hands-on workshops, SME panels, and global summits. Join a vibrant community of 25,000-plus members and be part of our global events. Check our reviews on Trustpilot. We're trusted worldwide for quality, support, and impact. Whether you're aiming higher or building tomorrow's talent, GSDC is your partner in purposeful growth and impactful leadership. Visit our website to explore our offerings. GSDC, share the best practices and learn from the best practices.
Hello
Welcome to the
everyone.
Global Skill Development Council.
We'll be starting a session now. Just allow me 1 minute. I can just share my screen. Here we go. I hope my screen is visible to you all, and thank you very much for joining today's session. And I welcome you everyone to GSDC Certified Learning, Mastering the Art of ISO 42001 Audits, with the theme that is Achieving Excellence in ISO 42001 Audit Strategies for Compliance, Risk Management, and Continuous Improvement. My name is Preetam. I'm going to be your host for this session. If you need any assistance during this session, please do let me know over the chat box, and I'll be taking care of it. So it was a very amazing session that we were having since 22nd to 26th. So today is the last session, and we had this amazing panel of speaker aligned for this entire webinar series. And it was really a great sessions that we have done so far. And today we'll be having Dineshin Pillai with us. He's the head of support, and he'll be taking us through the managing corrective actions and driving continuous improvement in ISO 42001. So before he could start with his session, would love to introduce our hosting organization, GSDC. We known as Global Skill Development Council, vendor agnostic, vendor neutral. We are globally recognized certification body, and we are accredited by NSI and ABICB. We do have 100 plus certificate portfolio with us, and we have certified more than 250,000 professionals worldwide. We have 500 SMEs. Those are subject matter expert, industry experts. They're affiliates from top universities. They work with us closely to design our deliverables. And we are associated with 1,000 multinational corporates and 500 Fortune companies and 50 plus universities across the globe. And I'm very proud to inform you all that we do have more than 100 plus training partner across the globe. We have partner in Asia, Africa, Canada, America, and many other countries. So would love to thank you those who have joined us through our training partner channel. In case if you're looking for any training program for yourself, I'll be sharing the link in the chat box, so you can reach out to our training partner to inquire about the training program that you are actually looking for. A special thanks to our official media partner, World Press Hub, for covering all our events and press releases. As I mentioned in my previous slide, that we do have 100 plus certification portfolio, which includes certification on generative AI, agentic AI, learning and development, instructional designer, pure mode generative AI and project management, in cybersecurity, risk and compliance, and ISO related certification. So if you're looking for any of these certification in order to upskill yourself, your skills, you can definitely reach out to our learning advisor, or you can explore our website, that is www.gsdcouncil.org, to check all the details regarding the certification and all that offerings that GSDC has for all of you. So with this certification, of course, you'll be getting a lot of benefits with it. You'll be a GSDC's member for a lifelong. With that, you'll be getting certificate upgrade, and you'll be having free access to all our events, workshop, boot camps, and you'll be having access to all the exclusive learning program that we do have. With that, you'll be getting implementation resources, speaker invites, and newsletter. So do grab this opportunity and do sign up yourself for this certification program. So without any further delay, let me tell you all more about our today's speaker, Dinesh Shin. He's a head of support at BET Software and a chartered CIO with deep expertise in running mission critical systems 24 by 7. With years of experience navigating the AI hype cycle, he has led successful AI integrations in large enterprise environments, tackling both practical and ethical challenges. A regular speaker at events such as Data and AI Community, the nation is a passionate about making AI understandable and driving its responsible adoption. His current focus is on connecting AI governance with real world application, especially through IEC 42001 to help organizations build AI systems that are compliant, transparent, and ethical. So let's give him a warm welcome and the handover of the virtual mic. Dinesh, you can take it over now. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you guys. And yes, thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, welcome to today's session. Just let me know if you guys can see the screen that's being shared. And I will be moving over. Quick check. Is everyone able to see the screen? Perfect. Okay, yeah, guys. So thank you for including me. And it's wonderful to be on this journey, especially with ISO 42001 being so new. It's lots of companies are trying to explore, and yeah, it's going to be a pleasure taking you through the actual topic for today, which is the corrective actions and continuous improvement. Right. A lot of the time, we want to have all these things implemented, but when things go wrong, that's where that's where we have to now start to see how we're going to fix and what we can do. What's the corrective actions? How can we prevent system failures? And then also, the CI/CD pipeline. How we're looking at continuous integration, continuous improvement, continuous delivery, continuous development, and then all related into ISO 42001. Yeah, so with me, just a little disclaimer as well. So the thoughts and opinions that's shared by myself against the framework and around what you're going to see today is that of my own. It's not a reflection of the employer or the group that I belong to. And it's my experience with what I've actually experienced in this certifications and this sort of journey with ISO 42001. So I decided to do this talk because I know you guys had a long week of talks, and I thought we'll change the format up a bit and we'll actually make it a bit more interactive, almost like a lesson, and then a little bit about why it matters, right? So in terms of why would you need this? Why do you need this, right? So with the fast-paced or with the fast-pacedness of AI in integration into industries, we're looking at what are these corrective actions and preventative actions that we can adopt, right? The whole CAPA or CAPA process, right? And it's continuous improvement on the frameworks and the organization struggles that they currently have, right? So we're going to move through the whole thing, and we're going to also talk a little bit about our AI hype cycle that I've created and put together. I'll show you that graph, what I sort of from experience looked at and what's happening in the industry, and saw that it would make much more sense putting it in the graph, and I'll share that with you. And then we'll do a quick poll, right? So where are you today, guys? Are you stuck in your pilot overloads? Do you guys have a few wins? Are you scaling with discipline? Like, you can drop your comments in the chat. Be good to see exactly where you guys are in your current spaces. Okay, and then also what will be good as well, I noticed like some of the team members that do join the talks, a lot of the time, there's a lot of acronyms being used. So it's always good to understand what these things mean. So you're looking at some basics ones, and I'll actually focus a lot on like with AIMS, right, which is in ISO 42001, which is the AI management system, and then CAPA, which is corrective actions and preventative actions, continuous improvement. We're looking at non-conformity, opportunities of improvement, definitions of done, root cause analysis, internal audits, management reviews, machine learning operations, RACI, which is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. We're also looking at service level agreements or objectives, and then data protection, impact assessment. So as we move through, you'll start to cover a lot of these acronyms. If you guys get lost, just drop the acronym into the chat, and then we'll and then we'll pick it up and then let you know what that means. So what are the learning outcomes for today, right? And I actually thought like doing this talk, it would be good if you actually take away something, right? It's always good to take away something from this, because then it makes sense. So a lot of the stuff, we're going to be covering around how we're going to actually have this continuous improvement in place, right? What are we going to do? So it's all about like, how do you run your own CAPA process, right? What is that correction actions that's needed when you're running AI in an environment? You're also we're going to look at like driving strategic change, like actually going back and making a difference in the organization, actually kickstarting something in your organization. We're also going to look at even defining what auto triggers are and why those things are important. And then also, most importantly, because ISO 42001, you're looking at when guys are, when you get audited or you do your internal audits, it's all about evidence, right? Remember, if you don't have evidence, it never existed. That's a lot of the things that we hear. So evidence is important. So you're going to implement with effective verification, right? Using documented evidence. That's the most important thing. So if you're looking at the framework itself in terms of its overview, in context of this specific talk, we're going to be covering clause 8, 9 on 2 parts, and then and 10 with regards to monitoring, internal audits, management review, and then improvements, right? We're going to look at analyzing trends. We're going to look at why and how we should handle non-conformities. We're also looking at what type of monitoring performance and criteria we need to have, and then how to make all of this gel together. And that's important. One of the things that we'll focus a little bit on is the AIMS loop engine, right? So the AI management system loop engine. And it's the circular process, and it covers everything from operations to internal audits to management review and improvements, right? A lot of the time, in terms of the operations, what are your day-to-day space? Like what systems is being monitored? And do you have proper tracking and monitoring in place for those systems, right? What sort of governance is in place? What sort of guardrails are in place, right? And then a lot of the time, we don't leverage internal audits. So you don't leverage your internal audit team that actually can go in and help you to actually find where there could be potential problems. We normally just wait for external audits to happen. So how do we empower the internal audit team to help us and understand how to audit AI systems in alignment with the ISO 42001 standard? And then we're looking at management reviews and the strategic assessments that come with that. And then what type of improvements? And this is what this talk is about, is in terms of the improvements, implementing your corrective actions, in understanding CAPA, right? So your corrective actions, your preventative actions, and how do you actually go and work with that? So in terms of CAPA itself, right? So for auto CAPA, remember in the beginning we spoke about automation and those auto triggers, right? We have what we call, like, in this space, you're looking at establishing auto triggers. Now, remember, for auto triggers, it actually eliminates all the fuss in between. When something's going wrong, you actually have to have this in place. And having auto CAPA is very important, because if you look at the way you use corrective actions and preventative actions, right, they actually have to follow a whole process. So if you're trying to correct something that's gone wrong, many times we have bloated or inflated processes that actually surround that. And then what ends up happening is that you'll start to see that like these corrective actions take longer to come to be brought out. It's a long, drawn out process. And then what ends up happening is that you could get even worse into the situation, or some situations don't even get resolved correctly, and it's almost more of a patch. A lot of the times there can be some quick wins. With quick wins, you can actually enable the auto CAPA. Now, you can enable auto triggers to actually look at and fix any criteria breaches. So you're looking at maybe accuracies that could go astray, looking at any latency issues, anything that's out of range, especially for system drift, right? So system drift is like in terms of data quality, right? On fairness, on metrics. So you'll see, like, maybe you take on a new system, maybe you ingest a new set of data and logs, and you'll start to see that maybe some of the systems are not responding the way they need to anymore, right? You're getting a little bit of biased data coming through. It's not fair. The fairness is sort of going out. You're getting a lot of drift. You'll notice that before the upgrade, your systems responded and behaved in a certain manner, whereas after the upgrade, you'll see that the answers coming back, even from basic systems that you could be integrating AI systems into your organization, you'll see that some of the actual answers are coming back, and there's no consistency that's coming through. You're also affected by third-party changes, right? Remember, for us, if you're building AI management systems and you having it follow a certain criteria and standard, you could be affected by third-party systems that you are integrated with. So any integration on with third parties, and drastic changes happen on their side, where you will be using a lot of their systems, a lot of the logs, a lot of the data, you'll start to see that it could actually have a knock-on effect on your side. So there should be a control mechanism in place for that. And then also, if you're looking at security events, right, in terms of privacy breaches, safety incidents, like what's happening in terms of your security vulnerabilities that's being detected, what are we doing with them, right? So those are things, like, if you look at it, like what are the automated triggers that we could look for under the operational context for ISO 42001 in terms of continuous improvements and integration. These are some of the things that you can take and look at in your own organizations and see how you can actually watch for these type of things. It actually helps, especially when you're working towards the certification. And just a quick check, right? So which trigger type is currently your weakest in point for detection? Like, you guys can drop, again, you can drop some messages in the chat. And it's just basically like, when you go back and you look at your current systems, like which one would you normally focus on? And what would be that criteria for you to determine that this is actually a point that you are getting a lot of issues from? So it's a good place to start, especially when you're looking at continuous improvement, continuous integration, continuous development, delivery as well. And then remember, with all of that, you need to have evidence, right? So essential evidence in terms of your collections. Telemetry is important. You have to have like your event logs and telemetry. Remember, you got to capture all your timestamps, your system IDs, user actions. Remember, without any of that, it's quite difficult to actually understand where any sort of corrective action has to happen. Without this level of detailed logging, it's quite difficult to manage your AI systems effectively, AI management systems effectively, because then what's going to happen is that you're driving blind. So it's very important to understand that when you're putting these systems in, that you are taking into consideration everything from your logs and your event logs, especially around your telemetry, like what's being captured, right? All your instrumentation should be logged and moved off for interrogation. You also need to make sure that you document your test results, because that's important, because before and after results are critical. It's all good and well that you know what happened afterwards, but what are you comparing it to? So what's that baseline looking like? That's very important. So that type of documentation has to be in check. You got to understand what you're always comparing to, because then it's difficult to have corrective actions or even preventative actions to be built if you don't know what you're working with. Another thing I also found is that in terms of traceable screenshots, like screenshots help a lot of the time when it's part of your evidence pack. It actually works well. Visual evidence helps a lot more than large chunks of logs. You'll notice, like, especially when you're trying to make improvements and you have to carve and you have to read through tons and tons of logs, it doesn't really work well. It's very good to have like sort of screenshots of high level systems so that you can start to see how it works, how it should look, how the flow works. So that's also very good especially for user interface interactions. That helps a lot. And then especially around, your process documentation. A lot of the time when you're trying to follow these type of standards, you got to have, and the reason why standards exist is because you ask the fundamental question: what is the right way? What is the right way? And ISO answers that question. When we ask what's the right way to do something, we normally move to ISO because that is the standard. And if you understand what the standard is, and then everyone's sort of aligned, and there's no sort of biasness coming through, there's no sum of guessing, you know what's happening. And when you're trying to work through that, and when you're trying to present that to your stakeholders on how to work, referencing SOPs, change records, approval flows, those are all important when you want to try and manage this level of system. It's also very important, remember, if you have SOPs in place and you want to use your SOPs for day-to-days and operationals, then that's good. But it's always good to interrogate those SOPs once in a while and then look at what can be automated, what can be, what's not needed anymore. With processes, they're never going to last forever, right? They will die, they will end. So it's very good to understand that these are all these SOPs, and review them. Keep your systems up to date, because you could be also having a whole bunch of documentation that isn't relevant anymore, especially around changes. Because when changes happen, you have to go back and review what is not applicable anymore, or what has to change. So review all those SOPs. So when you do eventually have these type of things in place, you'll be able to do proper root cause analysis, right? Especially around for AI systems, because in the ISO 42001, if you're looking at AIMS because it's AI management systems, it's always good to understand how to do root cause analysis for these systems specifically, right? And there's a few areas where things can go wrong when you're looking at AI systems, and when you're doing a root cause analysis, it's good to approach it in these 4 tiers. is there data issues, right? So data issues in terms of quality, your biasness, drifts, you're looking at model problems, you're looking at machine learning, ops failures, and governance gaps. If you can cover these 4 major areas, you'll start to be able to effectively contain and correct and then even prevent, right? Because when you do have issues, especially around these systems, you want to contain so that your blast radius is much more smaller. You want to then correct, so get everything working again, fix what you can, and then look at preventative measures, stop anything happening of similar nature in the future. So when you're looking at in your continuous, your CI/CD pipelines, especially when you start to create these AIM systems in your organizations, to continually look on improving them, understand where you could have problems and build out your sort of HADR solutions around there. Right, there's a very high possibility that you could have data issues, you could have a model problem, you could have machine learning issues, you could have governance gaps. So it's always good to sort of pillar these out, and then you'll be able to then perform root cause analysis in those pillars and then start to bring out a lot of stuff. You could actually look at lots of other, you could fishbone diagram this. So if for many of you that are familiar with other practices like with Lean, like Lean Six Sigma, Kaizen, these type of things, those type of other sort of frameworks and stuff help you, especially with this, because then you can do proper 5 whys, you can do proper root cause analysis, you can do fishbone diagrams to actually identify where problems could exist and why. So if you look at, I just put out a generic work example that we actually found on the internet. And this was after a cloud upgrade, right? So it's a real world case study that happened. And out of, we're not going to name any of the companies and stuff, and you guys can go and research this if you need to, but it's external companies that we found on the internet that actually released this. And it was real world examples demonstrating, right, exactly what happened. So they had done a cloud upgrade, and then they started to see that their fairness metrics started to drop. After an entire root cause analysis, they realized that just by upgrading, they upgraded their systems, they realized that it actually affected a lot of the validation required for the AI systems, right? They managed to then put in corrective actions and then vendor coordination, which then came into play, and then they managed to stabilize. Because remember, if we go back, it's containment, corrective, preventative, right? That's your kappa in your root cause analysis for your pipelines, which is your pillars, which is for data issues, models, machine learning ops failures, and governance. So here's the part that I think which would be very good for you guys in terms of actually building out your own like kappa and CI engine, right, in your organizations. It's good because you'll actually understand how to do this, and it's not. And for those of you that do have experience in like project management and stuff, you can follow similar sort of frameworks like daily stand-ups, weekly stand-ups, right? You could have like when you follow change controls, like you have a CAB, which is change advisory board, which is very similar that you can apply in this because it all forms part of that management of the systems. So if you're looking at a systematic approach, right, you can start with like 30-minute focus sessions with WIP limits, right, in project management, right, work in progress, and clear ACs, which remember part of the acronym, who's responsible, who's accountable, right, who should be consulted, and then who should be informed. That's important because a lot of the time when you're building out these frameworks and you're trying to align to a standard, you have to define RACI well, because then when you are trying to get, during your internal audit phase, during your external audit phase, during your recertification, it's very important that you understand who's accountable and who's responsible for what area, right? Another big one is also definition of done. Remember, it's very important to understand what does that mean, because you could do something and I could do something, and then my done is different to your done. And it's very, very important to understand concepts like WOW, DOD, RACI. WOW is, way of work. What is our defined way of work? So when we're trying to understand how we're going to improve on AI systems, on our AI management systems, how we're going to stabilize, how we're going to correct, how we're going to make, how we're going to sort of have proactive measures for any sort of issues that come out, we have to have a way of work in terms of the entire team has to have the similar way of work. They have to also understand what the definition of done is. Like at this point, when we do an internal audit, what is the definition of done? Like if we find something, how do we know that it's actually complete? Like all the different steps have to be sort of drafted out. And a lot of the time, having a Kappa board helps. Like a lot of organizations who's taking on AI journeys, they have an AI council. They start off with an AI council. And in there, they start to define what sort of systems they want to, or what sort of AI implementations and the different levels that they want to start with, what sort of areas they want to either move into automation or then full AI, and what level of AI they want to use, or even if they want to go machine learning. They start to open up projects and they start to build up like champion teams in different departments, right? It's important that you also incorporate the whole Kappa board there, because then that's important in terms of how you're handling changes and how you're handling DR, which is disaster recovery, how you're handling high availability, because you could end up in a situation, when you're implementing your AI management, when you're trying to build a framework around AI management systems, and this is off the ISO stuff, but this is actually working with it. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You'll end up automating all these systems or using a lot of AI into a specific department. Then when it fails, that it's a grinding halt. So then what is the high availability strategy we're looking at? What is the disaster recovery strategy? You got to look at things like RPO and RTO, your recovery time objective, your recovery point objective. And all those fit in. And when you understand all of that, sort of improving on your current system and making it stick actually will then start to be a lot more easier, because the foundation is absolutely done well. You could even look at doing things in sort of a Kanban fashion. You could have your boards out, like what are you currently doing, or to do your backlog. This is normally your backlog. What's you doing, what needs to be verified, and what's actually done. This actually helps us as well with a lot of you that's pursuing these certifications as well for internal audits. Like what has to be done, what areas of the system that you still have to audit, what the team's currently doing, right? And what has to be verified, and who verifies this, and you start to bolt on RACI on top of that. So this is how you can actually get started with that, which will actually be quite good for you guys. You're also looking at audits that change behavior, right? So you're looking at an evidence-based approach. You're looking at how can you effectively audit. Now, a lot of you that are actually ISO 19011 certified, which is for audits, for audit principles, that same sort of frameworks can be adapted here. It actually helps with this, because then you also have the fundamentals around auditing principles. So you could, when you're working with ISO 42001 for internal or external audits, you can actually leverage that as well, which is quite important. It's not a must, but it does help a lot. And then you're looking at sort of your evidence-based approach, your risk-based focus, your fairness presentation. So around evidence, like base findings on variable facts. Remember, we started in the beginning where I said, if you don't have the evidence, if there's no evidence, it never happened. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure that there is evidence documented, right? Because that's what these measurable outcomes are based on. There's no assumptions. There's no hearsay. Team member, your stakeholders are seeing actual hard evidence that these are gaps or areas of improvement. It doesn't always have to be negative. You can also have evidence that shows positivity. You can actually have evidence that shows like this is how things were functioning and now how it is functioning much better after change. So that's also important. Also risk-based, right? You want to prioritize high risk. Remember, if we go back to the 4 pillars, you want to identify high risk in each of them. What are the high risk areas under the data issues that we could have, right? Remember, like just looking at the top, quality issues under data, massive problem. Biasness, massive problem. Drift, massive problem. Missing values, massive problem. All those things mean that anything that's querying that data or anything that you're trying to pass on to other teams could potentially be wrong. So it's very important that the risk-based focus is in play, because then you start to prioritize all the risk that's identified and you assign sort of severities to them. You could get a priority 1, severity 1, which means do it now. You could get a priority 2, sort of severity 3, then you can start planning. And remember, that goes back to this. So when you're looking at building out your CI engine or your Kappa engine, when the teams are actually getting their work moving on to, when they're doing the audits, you can actually start to rank these risks, and then you'll know how to action them accordingly and where they sit in your entire process. Also remember with this, it's fair presentation, right? You got to report all the findings. Like even when you're trying to look at making the system better, when you're trying to look at building or modifying your engine, which is, you got to make sure that these findings are front and center. You got to acknowledge both the strengths and the areas of improvements, because remember, becomes very difficult if you don't bring those things to light, because then your CAPA process will fail. Because if you just stuck in your corrective actions only, then you won't pull anything into preventative, which would then be, you'll be stuck in a rut. You'll just be almost just putting out fires, whereas you could be actually preventing this from happening. Remember, in terms of your audit methods, you guys could use many structured ways, interviews of stakeholders, direct observation. This is one of the ones I absolutely love. So if you look at this, and this doesn't only apply into the ISO world, you can actually apply it in actually all aspects. One of the things you can do, and they cover it in Lean Six Sigma, and even Kaizen as well. Looking at Gemba, like go to Gemba, like go to a Gemba walk. Go to Gemba, go to the place where there's value. Like it's important for the teams when you are trying to create this improvement, when you're trying to improve these systems and trying to have the CI/CD pipeline continuously there and evolving. It's important to go to the teams to see where this is happening. It's difficult to audit remotely unless you're just only going to be looking at the documentation. Look at also non-conformity and start to classify what's under non-conformity. It's absolutely important, and also very important in terms of getting those in line. If it's not conforming to what the standard is, and you are auditing against the standard, then you have to bring that to light and bring that in line. So this is something that I created, and I hope you guys actually find some value in this. This is what I call this AI adoption curve, right? It's the reality check. And it's sort of to understand where your organization sits. So it helps you with like a realistic CAPA. Now, remember, what happens in many organizations as soon as they adopt the AI journey, you see a massive ramp up in terms of all these expectations. All the stakeholders are heavily involved. Everyone wants to try the new and best tool. No one actually can decide what actual tool they want to use. You'd have team members moving towards Sora, and then the next day Nano Banana comes out. Now everyone's shifting there. So there's a lot of inflated expectations around what it can do, how AI is going to revolutionize the entire company. And then that's sort of your peak of your hype, right? They call that the peak of your hype, where you have this inflated expectations, right? There's mass pilots. You have lots of different departments piloting a whole range of tools. And often you notice that there is no clear strategy as to what needs to have AI embedded in, and where and how, because there's everything. It's covering all aspects. And then what happens is, after a while, you actually see that trough of disillusionment, where you start to see a lot of departments where reality sets in. They realize it's too expensive. There's massive challenges. There's no skills. And there's real problems around like how this is going to be funded long term. And then you see the adoption actually, sink, because now reality is setting in. Now, it's very important not to try and do your improvements in these areas here, because you got to bring it to light quickly as to why, and sort of move them from these peaks and troughs into sort of that plateau of productivity. Because that's where now your mainstream adoption starts to come in, where everything settles and the dust settles, and then they realize, okay, cool, we actually want this tool in this area, and that's what we needed to do. And that's where you can start building out that CAPA or your CI pipelines and engines, because then you have the adoption, you have that plateau of productivity, you know what can be achieved, you know it's sustainable, you know what the strategy is, and then how to integrate. And then you can start working towards moving them towards the certification. If you try to do it here or here, where it's at the peak or the trough, you will find real difficulty because of the rapid change that's happening. You won't be able to contain what's going on, because the sort of the cat's out of the bag and everyone's trying to do a lot of things. So it becomes very difficult for the teams to actually start to standardize, to actually start to work in line. They don't have a definition of done. They don't have a way of working. Your RACI isn't properly built out because you have multiple teams doing multiple things. So you have multiple people responsible for their areas, multiple accountabilities. When you start to get all of that in line, your Kappa engine or your CI/CD pipelines and your ways of work around that will start to ramp up, because you're now becoming much more stable. And it's important, that's where you do it, and you'll see it. And just a quick poll to everyone here. Like, you can use the chat. Like, where is your organization? Are they currently stuck at the hype? Are they in the trough, or they, or on there on the sort of plateau of productivity? Like, where are you guys? It'll be nice to see where the team members are on this chat. And don't be afraid, guys. I know a lot of people are here. The peak of expected or peak of inflated expectations. A lot of companies, a lot of people are here because everyone thinks that a lot of these things can help and fix and do everything, and then they very quickly end up here. Yeah, honest answer: expectations and illusions. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of issues where you think these things can do what it needs to do, because a lot of the time it's influenced by social media, and it's influenced by online articles, and especially a lot of influencers out there, and then you start to realize that it's not possible for a lot of the stuff at an enterprise level. And you want to go from the tool sprawl, like sort of to governance. It's very important. Like, when you're in this space here, when you're in the peak of inflated expectations, you wanna understand and like move them quick. Remember, I said you want to move them quick through this. So you want to identify the sprawl. You want to catalog all these pilots and experiments across the departments, and then you want to actually start enforcing what actually is going to work. You want to start building your standardized criteria out. Like, what do we need? Like, what's the strategy? You'll start to consult with your AI council, your AI champions, whichever you have in your organization, or if you don't, you can start it. You'll start to establish all of those things, like establish the consistent performance. Like, what are we looking for? Because we need to start building Kappa out, right? And then you'll also implement vendor controls. Like, that's important, because you've got the co-pilots of the world, you've got ChatGPTs, you've got the Claudes, you've got everyone. Now, you can't have all ever. So you need to start looking at, okay, who do we want? Who do we need to be in? For what purpose, right? And then you start to implement vendor controls and how they should work and integrate with you. And at what level. You really don't want everyone using free versions, right? You want proper enterprise level. You want to make sure that there is sort of protection and contracts that's being signed and SLAs in place. So those are all under the implemented when you implement vendor control. And then what will end up happening is that you'll see that you'll quickly start to move people through the curve. And that's one of our our key goals when we start to go through this journey, because remember, you want to make sure that there's continuous improvement, and you can't do it here or here. You'll have to do it in this alignment phase. So how many projects stop at the trough phase? A lot. There's a question that came through. So how many projects actually stopped in the trough of disillusionment? A lot. You dropped in actually a stat here that says 70 to 95%. Right? Some studies say. I don't think that's far-fetched. A lot of pilots that start in the peak of inflated expectations do not make it through the trough of disillusionment. And the reason for that is because if you're a small organization with 2 to 3 people, many of your pilots will go through, many of them. And I think that's where the 20 to 5% of people will experience that. If you're a small to medium to large enterprise, a lot of those pilots will not make it through. And there's lots of reasons for that. Is because it's like in terms of adoption, in terms of growth, in terms of financial funding, there's a lot of projects that will not go through. You may do proof of concept, and you may just prove a point, but they may not make it through at the end. So that's also important. So what do you think is the greatest challenge or thing a senior should consider when implementing AI at a corporate level? So I think one of the challenges is having a strong team, right? To understand that when you're building out the AI council, you have to have what it's about understanding. The biggest challenge is understanding how to build that foundation solidly. Because if you don't have a solid foundation, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to move. And many team members, without understanding the foundation, they end up getting stuck here, right? And then when they end up here, including the person that's managing this AI management system, they themselves start to get frustrated and demotivated, because they themselves don't move it out, because they there's a saying, you're taking a whole bunch of feral cats and trying to make them pets. In this phase here, all those POCs and pilots, they're not going to be, now if you have an expectation where you're going to take all these feral cats and make them pets when you take them through here, then that's where the demotivation happens. So it's very important that you understand that one of the biggest challenges is just that, getting a strong team to make sure that they actually are going to work towards this graph. They need to overcome the peak of inflated expectations. They have to go through the trough of disillusionment. And then when the dust settles, that's when they'll gain speed. So another one we have is, the biggest problem I see is that a lot of organizations still don't understand clearly AI applications capabilities, except organizations who are developing their own LLMs. Companies who are developing LLMs are good at AI security, like how to use. 100%. So one of the problems is that a lot of people don't understand their capabilities. It's all like sometimes smoke and mirrors. Like a lot of times people say, like, you can just implement AI and you can bolt on products like N8N and things like that, and you can build on full automation and bolt on models, and then you'll become a one-man band. You can go from a department of like 30 down to a department of like 2. And then you can implement the solutions. That is true on some level where you could do that, but then the problem comes is when it breaks, then you're going to need the department of 30 to try and fix again. So that's one of the major issues where there's a lot of hype around certain areas. So with you guys, we're all trying to be on this journey in terms of the framework. Now, to bring it back to the framework, we want to understand this is where we play. Here, this plateau of productivity, right? Implementing ISO 42001 here, getting certified happens here, and it's very important that we understand that. So I hope you found some value in this graph of mine. It actually shows you pretty much where we are at different points. And then remember, now we're going from the sprawl to governance. So we're identifying all these sprawls. We're trying to standardize, because remember, it's hard. The framework itself, like, what is the standard, right? So what is the right way to do it? This is the standard. So if we're trying to implement an ISO standard, we should enforce standards within the teams and within the organization. So it's important to understand what these performance criteria look like, what the review processes look like, what the CAPA definitions are, right? And the definitions of done. It's very important that we go through that. And then, key metrics for management reviews, you're going to look at the CAPA cycle time. So, average day from CAPA, open, close, and then to verified. So you want to go through that cycle. And what that actually means is that how many days, what's the average between your open and close items, right? Between your corrective actions that you're trying to take and your preventive actions that you are trying to take. And then how effective is that? First time effectiveness, you look at percentage of CAPAs verified, right? That are a first attempt without rework. Because remember, definition of done helps you with that. RACI helps you with that. Root cause analysis helps you with that. So when you go through when these things hit your CAPA engine, you're going to start to look at, okay, what corrective actions do we need to take? Get that done correctly, and then enforce preventative actions, and then look for any rework. And then the less rework comes, you'll start to see the more mature your model starts to become. And then also in terms of control breaches, how are we handling that? Where were the breach? Handling that level of quality, non-conformity, right? Per audits, what's happening around non-conformity? How can we get that? How do we move quarter on quarter? Because in terms of improving, with this talk here, it's around continuous improvement. You have to have metrics. You have to know what's your current cycle time to try and enforce any sort of improvement to try and get it better. You want to know how much of rework is happening, right? What's this technical debt that's happening there? Like, in dev, they use the term technical debt. Like in operations, what's this debt that's sitting out there where we know things are broken, but we have to move forward? So which point do we go and stabilize? So how often after stabilization is achieved, does it break again that we have to go back? So you need that metrics there. And all these controls and guardrails that you put in, has there been any breaches and how many? Right? When you have all this matrix and this baselines, you will then be able to perform proper improvement policies and processes around this, and then your CAPA cycle will be much more stable. You'll start to look at a much more mature model in terms of how you're working towards that CI/CD. Continuous integration, continuous improvement, continuous development, continuous deployment. So you can start small, guys. So for you guys, you can do a 30, 60, 90-day implementation plan. I think it'd be good for you guys to actually try it. You can do a 30-day foundation, like you can establish your weekly CAPAs, get a RACI done, do some definitions of done, do the WOW. You can publish that out, build your AI council, understand what you're trying to do, and identify systems that where you need logging and what type of telemetry needs to be sort of enabled. You can do a 60-day where you start to go into execution and a 90-day for integration. And then at the end of all of this, once you get all of this in place and you understand how your entire AI systems work and in line with ISO, you should then start to move towards actually becoming ISO 42001 certified in terms of that organization. They should be able to then attain it, because you'll end up following the framework to the T. You'll have all your documentation in place. All the processes will be in place. You'll have proof. You'll have evidence. So, issuing bodies wouldn't have a problem to issue that organization with 42001. You can start with a simple CAPA template. This is something that I just whipped up. You don't have to follow it exactly, but it could look something like this, where you could create an ID. What is your finding? What is the risk level? Who's the owner? Remember, accountability, right? That's important. That talks to RACI. Your risk level also talks to, like how fast you need to get something done when you're looking at your Kanban boards, and your root cause analysis, understanding your teams, not only to make them so AI specific, but also having them understand other frameworks, even as I mentioned, Kanban, Kaizen, Lean. Those are all things that will all help to get processes in place properly. And then you can look at, remember we covered those 3 items: containment, corrective action, and your plan, preventative. So verification plan to make sure that whatever corrective actions are in place is there. And then your evidence logs, where's that documented? What was your lessons learned? Critical. A lot of the time, remember, when you're moving on CAPA, you're looking at preventative actions. In order to do that, you have to understand what are the lessons learned from previous issues. So that's also quite important to put forth. So, just as an interactive maturity quick scan, you can assess your organization's current AI governance, what their maturity level. So there's some questions that I've got you. I'll leave it up for a little bit. Score yourself, look at, let's look at number 1, do you have a defined performance criteria for AI systems? I don't think many of us do here in this call. And it'll be good to get those stuff in place, right? For you guys, it'll be good. Go to your organizations, try and get a defined performance plan in. If you look at corrective actions triggered automatically, that's quite a mature part of this entire framework, to get actions triggered automatically, because it's very good to understand where you are right now, understand what the baselines are, learn to do it manually first. Once it's verified and you understand that how it has to be done and when it can be done, then you can start working with automation and having these triggered. When you're looking at having triggers breach, automation for triggers to be launched automatically for any breaches, that's important to have day one, because when you're looking at your full log ingestion and you define your guardrails and you define your boundaries, anything in breach should then start alerting you, so you can start corrective actions super early. You contain the blast radius, and then you can start with your corrective actions in terms of, remember, containment, right? Also, another one, do your auditors have demonstrated AI system competence? That's an important one. You could have auditors in place, right, that are looking at this type of stuff. But then what could end up happening is that you would look at, do they have the effective sort of demonstrated competence around this? Because that's what's gonna be a real problem. You're not going to be, you could be skilled in a specific area, but not in specific AI systems. So it's important to identify that and make sure that, you bring that up early, because you could be audited by someone that may not understand AI systems, and could be auditing you against a totally different framework. So that's also a shortfall that could happen, right? And then our opportunities for improvement are systematically tracked and closed. So it's very important to track all your points that you've identified that you want to systematically improve. Remember, this one is around for this talk here, we're looking at improving, right? So you want to make sure that these things are tracked, because remember, you cannot do everything at once, right? You may find a whole list of things, and remember, that goes all the way back down to ranking it. So you don't only have to rank risk, you can rank requirements as well. What is these? You may have a list of 20 different improvements that you've identified. You can rank them from priority 1 to priority 5, and then start moving them up and down. And you may get multiple priority ones. Then you take all of those, and then you start to look at, from all my priority ones, which is the actual priority one, and then you can re-rank again. And that sort of sorting of improvements listed actually helps. If you're looking at the 5S, those are things that you can learn, that you can apply. You can sort first. So it's very important that you actually track all of that. And then you can just give yourself a quick score, and then you'll sort of understand what the maturity level is. And for those of you that are in here that actually have everything in place, drop a comment in. It'd be good to actually see that you actually have such mature organizations with ISO 42001 actually that do exist, with having every one of these things in place, and you can actually take lessons from you guys. So what you can do is your commitment to action, right, for when you want to do this is open one kappa today. Like a lot of the times the guy's like, okay, ISO 42001 is massive. Where do we start? We've got so many AI pilots on the go. We don't know. You have to start with one. Go back, take one issue that you have, and create the template, and then start building out all the things that you need. You can identify one issue. It could be a small issue, and I suggest start with the small issues. Trying to work towards complex issues may delay your entire process here. So choose one process that you can quickly define kappa. You can quickly understand how quickly assemble a change advisory board. You can quickly assemble and identify and allocate RACI. So who's responsible, who's accountable. You can quickly define a definition of done. You can quickly define a way of work, and then you can start working towards that. And once you build that, you keep then applying those processes out, and then you'll start eventually tackling these complex issues. So if you have buy-in from your stakeholders, create a kappa today. Book weekly meetings. Call yourselves the kappa board, right? It's important. You have a change advisory board. You should have a kappa board, right? And then you can look at 2 metrics from today's session that you can include in your next review under management review, right? So under your management review, you can choose 2 metrics and say, you know what, we want to actually do this, and we don't know where to start, but what we can do is we'll do this. So we know that we are here. We know that our organization is here at the peak of inflated. But what we want to do is we actually want to look at what's actually going in. So you know what? We've looked at a lot of stuff, and we actually think there's a model problem here. There's a problem in the way we're using models. It could be wrong, right? So how do we overcome that? So you can open up a kappa, or you can look at data issues. You can say, you know what, the quality of data that's going in here is not the best, especially for companies that's using models to train on their own data. So, or the easiest one, you can look at governance gaps. You can be like, okay, guys, you know what? There's no process or approval process that's happening here. And what we're noticing is that there's a lot of, the reason why that we have 55 different POCs happening is because there's no approval process. There's no alignment. So anyone has the authority just to go in and just, sign up to some AI tool and then have that implemented into production. So we need to stop that and sort of bring that in alignment. And you'll see a lot of the time, This year is your hardest road to climb because you get a lot of pushbacks in terms of governance, because now you're basically closing the tap, right? You're going to everyone and saying, you are stop going and purchasing any sort of tools, stop signing up to any AI tools. You got to go through the specific board. That's where the gap is. But remember, if your aim is to move them from here, which is the peak of inflated, off to the plateau, you're going to have to stop that unrealistic expectations, because everyone's just going to keep signing up to new tools and you're never going to get them to get started stable. Management buy-in is important, 100% so. Yes, management buy-in is important. It's always good. Remember, guys, sometimes, a tip I'll leave with you is that sometimes they don't know, and there's a term in the industry called managing upwards, and you got to manage up. You got to understand, like, okay, so if this is the type of manager I have, this is what they need. You got to manage up. You got to present this in a specific way that actually they understand what's actually happening. Some of this scares them. Some of them don't understand it. Some of them are actually responsible for this peak of inflated expectations. So you got to manage up. The key is managing up, and if you do that, you'll actually start to see a lot of the stuff will actually start to fall into place for you guys. So go through this, and just start a kappa today. I hope by the end of this, many of you actually go back and actually start looking at your systems that you have in place, and then start working towards ISO 42001 actually certification. And I think a lot of the stuff that you can get in line is quick wins. So go for the real quick wins, those low-hanging fruit. And I hope a lot of the content that I gave you guys today, actually some of them can be used in your organizations. And then let's deep dive into any specific questions that you guys may have. And I hope you enjoyed it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dinesh, for amazing session. And I believe this is going to be very helpful for all the participants who are present here today. And of course, indeed, it was a last session and it was a wonderful session. Thank you so much. Now, I request all the participants, please drop your questions in the chat box so we can take it from there. I believe, Dinesh, you have already addressed all the questions that previously we have received, right?
Yeah, I did. I was addressing the questions as we were going through. Okay, so we got a question. Can you throw some light on vendor risk? Yeah, so remember, with vendors, depending who you sign up to, you could end up having a situation where you could let's look at data, right? If you're in an organization that goes through and crunches a large amount of data, by choosing the wrong vendor to try and leverage their AI systems or models of their CRM company or something where you're trying to use them, you could actually end up breaking them, because remember, it works on tokens. So you're going to end up eating through your tokens. They're going to have to upgrade infrastructure. So a lot of the time, I think when you're looking at vendors, you got to manage vendor risk very, very well, because it's very good to team up, look at your current organization, and then look at vendors that sort of match that sort of enterprise level and scale. If they aren't able to scale as fast as you, or if they aren't able to grow as fast as you will end up breaking them, and they will become the bottleneck, because they may not be able to ingest or digest your data fast enough. They may not be able to give you recommendations fast enough. AI tools may stop working. You may have those risks. Also, vendors that aren't sort of approved and certified, you run the risk of that, because remember, allowing your data to move into these platforms, you're going to have to follow GDPR and POPI and the rest, right? And you're hoping these vendors also follow the same. The last thing you want is to use vendors that have a breach, and then a lot of your data is now exposed. So managing that vendor risk is very important. So I would say try and use vendors that are in the market when you're using enterprise, that that are well, like if you're looking at ChatGPT, if you're looking at Claude, if you're looking at Gemini, if you're looking at Copilot, in terms of Microsoft, many organizations, they are Microsoft driven. So bolting on Copilot is just like simply adding on Word and Excel and everything else, and it's already built into all of that. So that's actually something that you can use. try not to use any freebie stuff, guys. Those trials and freebies, you will run into it. So when you're doing this vendors, when you're working with the vendors, just make sure that you select well. For newbies in the ISO audit area, which training order would you recommend if you want to run audits in Mindcaps and quickly? See, honestly, there are training out there that you can use. You can go ISO 42001 practitioner. Then you can go to auditor. There's many lead audit courses as well. Practitioner is good. You actually understand the framework a lot better when you start with the practitioner level. The auditor level is good because then it's about making what you've learned in practitioner actually sort of align when you start starting to do the audits. So I would say try to start with practitioner. It's actually going to get you. It's going to be well. If you want to just push purely in auditing, even if you start with I had it, yeah, for audits 90. I think it was called 90,011, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going to bring that up quickly here. Here, 19,011. You can start there as well if you want to go full on auditing. That'll teach you auditing principles, so that you could start there. The challenges faced by AI user provider and developer. How does 42001 LALI navigate them satisfactorily? So, okay. So remember, with 42001 is that, remember what I said in the beginning, is like, we always ask the question, what's the right way to do it? And that's what ISO is. So ISO is the standard. This is the right way. This is the framework. This is what you want. This is how the world is doing it, right? So these challenges faced by like normal AI users and then the provider and the developers, right? That brings all of them into alignment. It actually brings all of them into alignment, because then there's no biased views that's coming in. There's no anyone asking, this is how I saw it and this is how it should be done. The framework dictates how it should work. It guides you. It shows you where the boundaries are. You breach that, then you're out of sort of equilibrium. So you got to have to just keep bringing that back. Having your entire team exposed to the framework at some level is super important, because then what happens is you don't have these internal audits team, or you don't have the AIMS or the Kappa team or the Kappa board functioning in some island. In a lot of companies, when you have changes, right, you submit your change and it goes to a change advisory board, and then many of them don't even know who this board is. It just gets sent to some mailbox and someone gives you an approval and then you carry on. But the involvement when you're doing this here should be much more. Go to Gemba, like create a session where you bring your provider in, where your users in, or your representatives and your developers, put them together and say, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going. Include them in daily stand-ups. Go to Gemba, like as I said, like go to the developers, find out what's going on, find out if they're aligning to the standard or not. Have people that understand the standard and learn the standard. You wouldn't want to send an auditor in there or a specialist in there that's not familiar with it, because then they could be part of the problem by allowing people to do a whole range of things. Yeah, I hope I answered a lot of your questions, guys. I appreciate all the comments and all the thanks. I hope you guys liked it. Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dineshan. Would you mind if I take 2-3 questions across the live platform? I've got it. Okay. So the question that we have got is, how do corrective actions and continuous improvement align with ethical AI principles like transparency and fairness?
So how do continuous improvement align with?
Yes.
Okay.
Ethical AI principle like transparency and fairness.
Okay, so remember, with transparency and fairness, those are ethical principles that should always be enforced. People should always know what's happening with this data. It should be transparent. It should be fair. Training data should be fair. Remember, it's always important, and that comes back to, if you look at slide, I'll show you this now. So if you look at here, system drift, right? If you're looking at this, like, when you're making these changes, you have to put these triggers in, because then you want to constantly align to the fairness and non-biasness and all these ethical sort of considerations that has to be in place, like in terms of transparency and the works. You don't want where in your journey of continuous improvement, you start to poison the data. So you should have these system checks in place, because as soon as you poison the data and your data starts to become where you start to have an issue on, I'll show you here, where you start to have data issues in terms of quality biasness, because you have data poisoning in your upgrade, that's when you will start to lose that. So you should always understand that you yourself should know where the data is coming from. It should always be transparent. You should always be fair. You want to always constantly align. So in your journey of continuous improvement, you have to always tread lightly when you're moving towards this. Even if you remember this case study I gave you guys as well, don't just simply do an upgrade. Don't fire and forget. A lot of the time, teams fire and forget. They make a change and then they think, because there's no one complaining, that there's a problem, but you could have unintentionally created a major issue that will then take a while to show up, but it will show up in terms of your fairness metrics, in terms of the biasness of the data. It could be a lot of things that could end up coming through. So yeah, I would say just constantly watch for that and build your triggers.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dinesh. We'll be taking this question as a last question for today. We have got this question from Matthew. How does ISO 42001 define and guide the process of corrective action in AI governance?
Okay, so remember, the framework is there to help and guide. Right, it's there to help and guide you. It's there to show you the standard. You'll have to go through the entire ISO standard in terms of the 42001, and then start to look at the clauses that actually make sense to and then start to explore them a bit more. Remember, it's a journey to get certified. It's not like a next day sort of thing. So understanding the standard, and remember, a lot of the times people think like the standards sort of tell you must do this and tell you should do that. It's guidance and frameworks. You can go a little off, but as long as it's meeting the criteria, it will work. It's not going to tell you step by step that you should have this document and that. It should tell you that you should make sure that your like if you're looking at clause 8, right, monitoring performance, right, raise corrective actions when system drift is happening. So if you have proof and evidence that shows that you have a system that monitors for system drift, that you have a system that monitors and establishes baselines and then moves away from that, like for monitoring and alerting, if you have something like Datadog or Dynatrace or something in place that actually alerts and monitors for that, that will work and be aligned in the framework. The framework won't tell you must use Microsoft, you must use Datadog, you must use Dynatrace. It's guidance. So always working within that, and then sort of reaching and satisfying the state of the clause, and how you do it should be left up to you. But then you should also come back. Remember what we said. Look at which vendor you're using. Look at all these different things, because you could be satisfying this clause here by making sure that there is alerting, but you could be failing on vendor risk. So it's very important to sort of understand that and balance that out, and how in your journey towards attaining that certification.
Wonderfully answered, Dinesh. Thank you so much. So I would like to inform all the participants, I do have some great announcement for all of you. So stay connected till the end. And before I take over the session, I would like to request you to please share your final thoughts or statement for all our participants today.
Yeah, I think it was excellent. Quickly, before I just do that quickly, I just want to answer one last question here. Does large data sets effectively reduce biasness in training of AI? Yes and no. Large data sets can reduce biasness in data if the data is correct. You could have large data sets that actually poison data if they go back too far. I'm trying to think of an example. If you use a large enough data set, for example, where there may have been an instance where there shouldn't be women drivers, for example, you'll end up ingesting so much of data where you'll end up poisoning the data, where it won't make sense anymore. So if you use a large amount of data sets over a large amount of time, you may start including things in your data set that's not applicable today. Maybe a couple of years ago, if you start ingesting articles that were done in history in your data sets around proper driving, you'll start to get information back like, oh no, women shouldn't be drivers, or it'll be biased towards that men may be the best driver. You have to watch for things like that. So large doesn't always mean right. you have to understand what data is going in there. That's why a lot of the time data engineers actually clean up a lot of the data before just ingesting data, because what's going to happen is, if the AI model will learn what it's been shown, shown to learn from, and if your rags are all, even if internal in a company, right? If you got an AI model internal on the company and you give it data to learn from, where you build rag databases, when you point it to that, you got to make sure that it's right. Otherwise, what's going to end up happening is going to be training on data that may not make sense, may not apply. So large amounts of data may not be effective, just like how small amounts of data may not be effective. You won't be able to get proper averages and baselines from very, very small data sets. So you got to find a sweet spot, and it has to be right. Yeah, and thank you everyone for including me. I think it was really cool getting to speak to you guys. Thank you for the wonderful questions. I hope I answered all your questions correctly, and you're happy with them. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I tried to make it a bit more interactive and a bit more informative in how we can actually get things done. And I hope you like the format and the style.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dineshjan. I have shared Dineshjan's LinkedIn profile link in the chat box. Please do reach out to him. If you have any further question in your mind, please do reach out to him. So thank you very much, Dineshjan, again for wonderful presentation. And as I mentioned that I do have some announcement for all of you. So quickly, let me share my screen. I hope my screen is visible to you all. And this is regarding the today's featured certification that we had session on. So you can opt out any of this certification where you'll be getting this amazing 20% off. You can opt out for certified ISO 42001 lead implementer, or you can go for lead auditor. So as you all know, these certifications are lifetime validated certification, which gives you a learning resources where you'll be getting a lot of case studies, e-learnings, and book of knowledge. These certifications are lifelong learning with comes along with the learning flexibility, and you will be having chance to connect with our training partner channel, and you will be getting a lot of opportunity to work on the capstone project. There is something real-time AI simulation practice. So do grab this opportunity. Use this promo code, which is audit20, to get a 20% discount on this certification, and this is valid only till this weekend. So grab this opportunity before it gets expired. Also, would like to inform you all, this is a toolkit. This is only for our ISO professionals who are present here, our webinar attendees. We are providing this completely free. How this can help you? It will help you to gap analysis. It will be having gap analysis checklist, 100+ audit questions, book of knowledge, ChatGPT cheat sheet. I've already shared the link in the chat box. Check it out and grab this opportunity as well. Also, we do have this utility tool. This will help you to improve your LinkedIn profile score, your AI skill score, your ISO related skill score. Please check it out. We are providing this as of now 100% free only for our webinar attendees. You can use this promo code, which is August100, to get 100% off. I've shared the utility link in the chat box. If you scroll up a little bit, you'll be able to find it, or I'll share it after this announcement. Also, I would like to make this announcement that we'll be having this next webinar series, which is scheduled from 29 September to 3rd October 2025 on advanced prompt engineering in practice. And we do have incredible panel of speakers aligned for this. So please do join us. We welcome you all to this series as well. I've already shared the registration link along with the WhatsApp group link in the chat box. So you can just connect with us to get update on this. Also, we are running this AI tool challenge for 28 days. Earlier, it was scheduled for 28 days, and now we are planning to, extend it till next week. That is till 3rd of October. And we have already invited a great AI expert for this, and they'll be giving us a live demo with practical walkthrough. So please do join us. This has started from 18 August onwards with the time slot that is 10:30 a.m. Central. So we'll be starting next AI tool challenge exact after 45 minutes. So please do join it for that session as well. And also you can refer your friends, your colleagues to our session, and by doing that you can earn rewards that is worth $400. And remember one thing, referring people to powerful and knowledgeable sessions, you're already taking a step ahead to become a thoughtful leader, and you are enhancing your credibility by doing that. Also, top 3 winners will be featured on the GSDC Wall of Fame. So do refer maximum people. We do have these 3 winners who have referred maximum people to our ISO 42001 session. So let's congratulate to them. Also, if you want to be a speaker for our upcoming event as a featured global speaker, you can definitely reach out to us, as we do have platform for you, that is learning capsule, webinars, and the podcast. And we would love to connect with you all over the social media platform. Do scan this QR to connect with us over the LinkedIn. You can explore our website www.gsdcouncil.org to get more details and to check all the offerings that GSDC has for all of you. Also connect with us over the WhatsApp group to get daily update on the events, webinars, boot camps that we do have for all of you. These are the very knowledgeable sessions, so please do join. Also, please do share your reviews on the Trustpilot link. I have already shared it in the chat box. And thank you everyone for joining today's session and supporting us throughout the entire webinar series. I hope to see you all for the upcoming sessions as well. Thank you very much, Dinesh. I'll see you again. Thank you everyone. Bye-bye. Take care.